From dark and dank preserves rumored to harbor evil forces capable of consuming those who stray too far, to tropical islands covered in chilling mementos where it's said the local ghosts just might follow you home. Are you ready for the most haunted forests in North America? Number 5. Parallel Forest. Parallel Forest, located off the eastern side of the Wichita Mountains Wildlife Refuge along State Route 115 near Lawton in Oklahoma, is a 16-acre expanse named after its unique parallel tree layout. Historically, this area was first inhabited by tribes native to the region, and later, through the 1700s, was claimed by the French, who would retain ownership until the Louisiana Purchase of 1803, after which it was turned over to the United States. Through the 19th century, thousands of Native Americans from across the country were displaced to Oklahoma, with the Dawes Act of 1887 dividing regional land and allowing space for settlers. In 1901, President William McKinley ordered a portion of the Wichita Mountains set aside as a national preserve, and in 1906, one Elmer Thomas would establish a resort along Medicine Creek that would grow rapidly into the town of Medicine Park. In 1912, a farm of red cedar was planted to be utilized in the building of the growing town, with trees planted exactly 6 feet apart to ensure they'd grow true. But this farm was never harvested and was later incorporated into the nearby refuge. Parallel Forest remains open to the public, standing as an oddity popular amongst hikers, photographers, and, more recently, paranormal investigators. Though it's uncertain by who or by what, local legend tells the entirety of this woody plot is haunted as a result of either satanic rituals or ancient curses, and those frequenting it often report orbs in photographs, phantom drums, otherworldly noises in the skies, and shadowy figures that stalk the living. The full-bodied apparitions of both early native tribesmen as well as European settlers have been encountered, and ruins left from a former mill are rumored to have been used as a dark altar of some sort, with many nearing them describing feeling inexplicably uncomfortable. Also reported throughout Parallel Forest is the constant feeling of being followed or watched by something unseen, and instances in which hikers have become suddenly disoriented or lost. Number 4. The Island of the Dolls. The Island of the Dolls, located in the channels of the borough of Xochimilco, south of Mexico City, is a landmass that's grown wildly in infamy in recent years for the countless eerie dolls set throughout its trees. Historically, this area acted as part of the village of Xochimilco, which was founded around 900 CE, and would become an important center of agriculture to Tenochtitlan, now Mexico City, when it was founded in 1325. Over the years, flooding would become an increasing issue, and following the Great Flood of 1609, work was started in draining portions of surrounding lakes, resulting in local water levels dropping drastically over the centuries. Through the 1950s, one Don Julian Santana Barrera would move to an island along the canal system, where he would discover the body of a little girl afloat. Days later, a doll would wash ashore at the same place, and, assuming it had belonged to the little girl, Barrera would hang it from a tree in memoriam. While stories past this point vary, it's generally accepted that Barrera lived out his life on the island, decorating it with various dolls and pieces of, before passing away from a heart attack in 2001, close to the very spot at which he discovered the girl's body so long ago. The Island of the Dolls remains open to this day and is visited by countless tourists annually, many of whom leave their own pieces amongst its collection. Not surprisingly, this creepy spit of land has been surrounded by tales of the supernatural pretty much since its first dolls started sprouting up. One darker version to Barrera's story tells that he was actually possessed, or haunted by the spirit of the little girl, who demanded he find her dolls at all hours for days until he cracked and began hanging them from trees. This tale furthers to tell that over time, he began to realize activity had only grown stronger, and that many of the dolls themselves were possessed. Those who have braved the island of the dolls have reported frequent disembodied voices and whispering emanating from said dolls, abnormal battery death, and extreme cold spots in hot weather. At night, strange mists and glowing orbs float among the forest, and ghostly forms have been known to appear later in videos taken on site. Lastly, many exploring the area have described being overcome by a strong feeling of sadness, often accompanied by the sensation that they aren't alone. Number 3. Meeman-Shelby Forest State Park. Meeman-Shelby Forest State Park, bordering the Mississippi River north of Memphis, Tennessee, is a 13,467-acre forest containing 10 state champion trees, 2 national champion trees, and numerous endangered species. Historically, Edward J. Meeman, an avid conservationist and editor of the Memphis Press Scimitar, was impressed with German forest reclamation projects of the early 20th century. By 1933, he had secured land and had started planning on a forest park of his own. And by 1935, the site was cleared, with efforts targeted at establishing a wildlife preserve and recreational facilities. By 1941, this new park offered picnic sites, playgrounds, campsites, administration buildings, cabins, and a swim hole. By 1962, conservation efforts had started to show through the growth of various strands of valuable southern hardwood, and by protected trees gaining up to an inch in diameter a year. Today, over half of the forest's expanse is a wildlife management area, with the park boasting a range of trails, day-use areas, lakes, and, according to legend, a slew of chilling hauntings. Across Meeman-Shelby, both officials and visitors have reported orbs of light visible to the naked eye, unnatural cold spots in summer, and eerie fogs that descend upon the area alone. Some of the most famous ghost stories associated with the park tell of the Pig Man, an entity depicted as either a man with a deformed face, a killer in a pig mask, or an actual half-man, half-pig. Some sources tell that in life, the Pigman worked at a local explosives plant, but that an accident resulted in his deformation, leading to him being shunned and eventually to him taking refuge under a local crossing, now referred to as Pigman's Bridge. As these stories further deranged, it's said this man eventually began kidnapping and killing hikers and children who wandered too far, later eating their remains. As legend has it, the Pigman, or possibly his ghost, remains in the forest, forever seeking his next potential victim. And into recent times, countless reports detail encounters, especially near full moons, with a large, intimidating form that grunts like a pig and that's been known to chase any who cross its path. Lastly, near the Pigman's Bridge, adventurers have reported sighting a range of apparitions. Many suspect restless spirits of this abomination's many victims, and some tell that if you stop on the bridge under a full moon and call out the Pigman's name 3 times while flashing your lights, you may just get what you're asking for. Number 2. Nahanni National Park Reserve. Nahanni National Park Reserve, located in the Decho region of the Northwest Territories in Canada, is a 30,000 square kilometer expanse holding a portion of the Mackenzie Mountains natural region that acts as a designated UNESCO World Heritage Site. Impressively, these lands were utilized by the Dene people for more than 10,000 years, with oral histories mentioning the Naha, a brutal and feared mountain race, who, it's told, vanished without a trace, though some historians suggest they may have migrated south to become what we know as the Navajo. Initial contact with European fur traders occurred through the 18th century, and by the 19th century, the mountain people of the Nahanni region had begun to travel downriver each spring to trade furs for the winter. During the Klondike Gold Rush, though many attempted to prospect throughout the area, no significant weight in gold was ever discovered, and many died on this perilous pursuit. The Nahanni National Park Reserve was established in 1972 and remains active to this day. The site is constantly expanding, is largely comprised of uninhabited wilderness, and is open year-round, though for safety, visitors must register with park officials, and also deregister within 24 hours of leaving. Through a compilation of native accounts and local lore, Nahanni has earned the nickname the Valley of the Headless Men, with stories of the supernatural spanning back to some of the first Dene to settle, and many frequenting its vastness have reported otherworldly noises from the trees, shadowy figures that roam freely, full-bodied apparitions in attire spanning the ages, the constant feeling of being watched or followed, and encounters with terrifying cryptids such as the Wahila, a wolf-like being of myth. UFOs and strange lights dot the skies, and a seemingly impossible number of plane crashes have occurred at a place known as Funeral Range. A number of hikers have described encounters with what are believed to be Nukluk, or short, hairy, caveman-like hominids, and several have reported finding prehistoric creatures or even tropical paradises hidden deep within the forest. Lastly, in an area known as Deadman Valley, in 1904, brothers Frank and Willie McLeod went searching for gold, which it's said they found. They made for a second trip in 1905, but strangely never returned, after which, in 1908, their brother Charlie went searching for answers. Eventually, Charlie came upon their camp at the edge of a river or creek, and found their skeletons nearby with their heads severed, a fate that's been shared by many others who have ventured too deep. Number 1. Bankhead National Forest. Bankhead National Forest, split between Lawrence, Winston, and Franklin counties in Alabama, is a woody expanse covering 181,230 acres that plays home to the state's only national wild and scenic river, the Sipsey Fork. Historically, this region was inhabited by various native tribes over the millennia, with Spanish explorers arriving later through the 16th century, and settlements sprouting up later still by the 18th century. By the time Alabama had earned its statehood in 1819, the area that's now Bankhead was largely comprised of small communities. In 1918, it was proclaimed Alabama National Forest by President Woodrow Wilson, and in 1936, President Franklin D. Roosevelt would rename the site as Black Warrior National Forest. The expanse would be renamed one final time in 1942 in honor of longtime Alabama Senator William B. Bankhead. Today, Bankhead National Forest, nicknamed the Land of 1,000 Waterfalls, offers 6 recreation areas, a range of hiking and equestrian trails, and options in hunting, boating, angling, swimming, canoeing, camping, and more. The most famous story surrounding Bankhead tells the forest is haunted by the spirit of one Aunt Jenny. As history and legend have it, mid-19th century, a Louisa Elizabeth Jane Bates Brooks resided in the area with her husband Willis and their 9 children. Known simply as Aunt Jenny, her sons would go on to become the infamous Brooks Boys. During the Civil War, it's documented that Willis and John, the family's eldest son, were killed for aiding deserters and for refusing to join the Confederate Army. And it's said that Jenny trained her 5 remaining sons to shoot, fight, and gamble before sending them out to hunt down their brother's killers. This Old Hill story furthers to tell that the boys, possibly accompanied by Jenny herself, saw to the painful deaths of all involved in the killing of her kin. Jenny would later remarry, would change her last name to Johnson, and would pass away in 1924, outliving and forever cherishing her outlaw sons. At least that's how some tell it. Others claim that one of the killers got away, and that Jenny's spirit remains deep in the woods, forever seeking revenge. Jenny's full-bodied apparition has appeared throughout the forest, though most often near her old homestead, where she's been known to chase trespassers away, and even attack those harboring ill intent. Reported throughout Bankhead are phantom voices, shouting and gunshots, orbs in photographs, and inexplicable electronic malfunctions. Activity through the area is said to get strongest during storms or under full moons, when several have described terrifying instances in which they've been hit, scratched, or grabbed by something unseen. Taking into consideration its fascinating history and coupling it with a wide assortment of purported supernatural phenomena and ghost stories, we felt Bankhead was the perfect choice as the most haunted forest in North America. Thanks for tuning in for some of the most haunted forests in North America. If you enjoyed hearing our histories and ghost stories, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and turn notifications on. Throw us a like and, most importantly, share us with anyone you feel could use a good scare. We'll see you next time.